What if I told you that your body has the ability to heal itself? That you're not actually helpless and hopeless in this world that tells you you need to depend on everything outside of you to find health within? We're experiencing a paradigm shift around the world right now. We're finding that we no longer have to depend helplessly and hopelessly on everything outside of us. But we have all the resources and all the tools to experience balance and health within our bodies once again. Today, I have the privilege and honor of sitting down with Tony Robbins to speak about this topic, a topic that he's been going into down that rabbit hole, all about vitality, health, wellness, overcoming disease, something that most people for decades and centuries have told us was impossible. Well, it's not. And we're finding those answers. We're finding those solutions. And Tony has actually written a book, came out in February of 2022 called Life Force, all about these breakthrough technologies. So first and foremost, Tony, I want to say thank you for your time and
Thanks for coming.
thank you for
Good to
making
see you.
this happen. I
My pleasure.
appreciate you.
My pleasure.
So before we dive into this book, I just want to, set a basis over here of why this whole thing is happening, how we're sitting here today. And it all started with a technology that you got in the past called the Energy Enhancement System technology.
Yep.
And over the past year specifically, a lot of awareness has been being built on that. And I know your friend Dan came to you and said, "Do you know what you have in your home?" And then
Yes.
that started piquing interest. And, here we are sitting here today with more systems coming your way to have that technology in your home.
Yes.
But before we dive into that technology specifically, your experiences with that, I want to speak about your book for a second, Life Force.
Yes.
A year ago, a year and change ago, it was published. It comes out. You speak to over 100 of the top medical minds around the world. What brought you into this path, of health, wellness, vitality?
I, I've been a biohacker for a long time because my work requires it. I get on stage with 20,000 people and I got to hold their attention for 12 hours a day, literally, when they won't sit for a 3-hour movie someone spent $300 million for. So the level of intensity, emotion, and doing that for 4, 6, 7 days in a row and have everybody in the very top of the stadium be affected requires an enormous amount of energy. So I've always been focused on health and energy. And I've always just been obsessed with what creates a better quality of life for people. And most people major in minor things. They know more about some celebrities' personal life than they do about their health, or they knew about their relationships or their business and so forth. And so, but what really ignited it to a different level for me was I had this experience where I was an idiot. I was following a 21-year-old professional male snowboarder down a mountain. And I am not a professional, nor was this 21. And he did some jumps I thought I could do. And I had an experience of a crash. I thought I broke my neck. I was knocked unconscious. It ripped all my rotator cuffs so severely. The pain, the nerve pain was just through the roof. So immediately you go to different doctors and, I'm smart enough to know you got to get more than one opinion, thank God. And every single one, surgery, 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 and I was like, well, what about stem cells? Because obviously I'm obsessed about a lot of different things. And I'm reading a lot about stem cells. I heard they've been used by over 1 million people, that, 80 different diseases have been affected. And every single one said, no, 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 that'll never work. That'll never work. But I have a friend who was my co-author here, Peter Diamandis, and Peter is really connected. I said, who is the best person in stem cells in the world? That's who I want to talk to. And he said, well, Dr. Bob Harari, he's kind of the founder of that. And I didn't know, it's like saying, I want to play basketball. Well, let me introduce you to my friend, LeBron James, right? And so I met Bob, and Bob said, Tony, they're right about one thing. Your own stem cells after 40, for maybe an elbow or maybe a knee, but not for something this severe. You need 4-day-old stem cells. And I said, I don't want fetal tissue. He goes, no, no, no one does that anymore. He said, it's using, when a baby is born, they usually throw out the umbilical cord, and the umbilical cord has this built into it. And he said, so you can't do it in the US. I'll tell you where you go. He goes, very professional. And I said, well, everybody says it won't work. He said, well, what's your downside? He goes, if it doesn't work, you can go back and do the surgery. So I went to a place in Panama. Now I've gone to a place that I think the best in the world now is in Costa Rica. But the one in Panama was fantastic. I went there for 3 days. I had injections in the shoulder. I had IVs for the whole body. The first day I was really tired and they told me that might happen, exhausted. Day 2, I woke up out of pain for the first time in almost a year.
Wow.
Because I've been putting it off because they kept saying it's, the surgery is this long, but then the rehab, that's 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And I just couldn't afford that. And so sure enough, I couldn't believe it. I went and got my MRI afterwards. My shoulder is perfect. I was out of pain in a couple of days and everything functions perfectly. So now I was obsessed. Now I wanted not only stem cells, exosomes, I don't know everything that exists in regeneration. I thought I knew a lot up until that point. And then I got invited by the Pope. The Pope, believe it or not, does the biggest stem cell conference, regenerative conference, every 2 years because it's not fetal tissue. So he thinks this is a gift from God. It brings in all the best experts. And they asked me if I would be the cleanup speaker for this event. And I said, well, if I'm going to come, I want to attend all the classes. So I went for 4 days and nights and I heard stories. I met people that were sent away to die from cancer stage 4, completely turned around. I mean, the stories, the turnarounds, and the specific examples from these doctors are amazing. And I was like, how come the world doesn't know this? And then they shared with me, and I actually read the study. It's a study that shows, on average, from the time there's a breakthrough to the time your clinician will now endorse it and use it, is 18 years. So I was like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do what I did with money. I went and interviewed the smartest investors in the history of the world, wrote Money Master the Game, #1 New York Times bestseller. It's been the best-selling financial book of this century. It's only 20 years old, but still. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do here. So I interviewed 150 regenerative scientists, doctors, medical doctors, anybody who was a real breakthrough in this area to say, what is the best that exists on earth for creating change? And I found answers from these people that I didn't know exist, most people don't know exist, and many of them available right now that can change things that many people are suffering with.
Of the answers that you found, I'm sure you were faced with a lot of those breakthrough technologies trying to catalyze the process of let's get them out quicker. What excited you the most?
Gosh, so much excited me. I think I should start with what's most pragmatic. The two biggest diseases that people are affected by are cancer and heart disease,
Yep.
right? So, people talk about prevention all the time, but the problem is, if you see the National Cancer Institute did a study with 100,000 people, and they found if you get diagnosed at stage 3 or 4, you have an 80% chance of dying. I prefer the 20% chance of living, but that's how they frame it, and I understand that. If you get it at stage 1 or 2, it's between 85 and 99.9% chance of living, right? The problem is most of the cancers that kill us, we don't test for, right? We have tests for breast cancer, we have it for prostate and so forth, but there are so many other breakthroughs, I mean, so many other forms of cancer that get caught too late. So one of the things that was really amazing is one of the groups, a group called, has developed this process. It's a blood test, and it's really simple. It's called the Grail test. It was developed by a gentleman from Google whose wife went through cancer and didn't make it, unfortunately. And if they would have caught it sooner, she would have been fine. And so he became obsessed. He used all of his resources, brought all the best doctors together. So now this single test can tell you whether you have up to 50 different cancers.
Wow.
And immediately, and I'll show you later on. I was going to show it to you earlier before we started, but I'll show you an interview someone just sent to me. Like, I've had so many friends that I've sent. We have a place called Fountain Life where we do everything you can imagine, but we do all these types of tests. And this gentleman went in, his wife is a friend of ours, and I signed a book for her, and she gave it to him on his birthday, his 53rd birthday, and he opened at page 53, and there was an invite to go to Fountain Life and do this physical. Because, the physical we get today is the same one you got 80 years ago. It's absurd. I'm going to snap you, I'm going to make you cough. I mean, come on, with all the technology we have. So this is like a digital download. You know exactly what's going in your nervous system. And one of the tests is the Grail test, and we do a full body MRI. So you know everything going on in the body. And so he had kidney cancer, but it was stage 1. But it was right on the edge of where his lymph system was. So the doctors told him if you'd waited 2 more weeks, it would in your lymph system, then you'd die. But was caught stage 1, hadn't got there, boom, 45 minutes, outpatient process, totally healthy. Just crying his eyes out. You're sending me a video thanking me and so forth. So it's really amazing to see what you can do around cancer. The other one is heart disease.
Yep.
And one of the greatest breakthroughs in the history of heart disease, cardiac work, has come through something called the Clearly AI test. It's a CCTA test, so like a CT test, but they use AI. And so, when a doctor looks at one of your CT tests and he's looking to see you have a buildup of calcium in your body, right? Well, there's two different types. There's soft plaques and hard plaques. Hard plaques is you actually are healed. The soft plaques are those widowmakers. They can break off and give you a stroke or give you a heart attack, right? So we had a gentleman came to Fountain Life, and he had 1,000 as his test. I mean, this guy's going to die, right? Obviously, the life insurance company won't give it to him. But this Clearly test literally opens up digitally every single artery and vein and shows you exactly what's going on there that a doctor can't see. Shows you whether it's hardened, which is good, or whether it's soft plaque, where it is, and ingredients and so forth. And then they tell you exactly what to do. They can predict a heart attack 5 to 10 years in advance. So you can prevent it or know what's really going on. So this guy, our insurance companies almost never turn around, but our main doctor there took him, showed him the clearly test, and said, "This guy, he has no real risk right now. It's all calcified. It's all solid. There's nothing there." And he got insured, to give you an idea.
That's
I
unbelievable.
took my father-in-law, who was 80 years old, and he's a strong man. He was in the lumber business, a self-made guy, self-educated. Real man, I really love and respect. And he was here visiting, and I noticed that as he turns 80, people around him are like, shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, and he's starting to buy into it a little bit. You're like, it's the end of your life, and it really bothered me because it wasn't a compelling future. And I know him as this robust, just go for it man. So I said, listen, I just got a call from my partners. This when the test just came out, it was a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. And I said, I'm going to go do this test. You should come with me. I said, we're both going to have plaques in us, but then they'll show us exactly where we are and we'll know what to do. He goes, okay. So I take him over there. We do the test. They come out and they show the test. My father-in-law is clean as a whistle. I mean, there's nothing there whatsoever. And then he's got this hip issue where he can't walk. And there's something else, another technology that's truly amazing comes in and they can open up, like I had an ankle, for example, that someone came to massage him, don't touch it. Because if you touch the ankle, the nerves hit. It was like somebody electrocuted me. 14 years, 5-minute procedure, totally fine. Right?
Wow.
Lower back problems, pieces like this. So what it does is they go in and they use not MRI, they use ultrasound and they see where the tissue is being trapped by connective tissue, let's say nerves, for example. And they put this fluid in and they put amnio, which is what you were born in, and it opens it. You can see it in real time, open and heal it. So they did this to his hip. So now he's walking perfectly. His heart's perfect. We get on the plane. I'll never forget this moment. He turns to me and he goes, Tone, he goes, some of these people talk about living 120, 110. I don't know about that, but I'm 80. My heart's perfect. I'm walking perfect. I can live to 100. So what I love about these types of breakthroughs is they're changing people's minds. When people come, about 14% of the people that come to our Fountain Life centers find out they have a life-threatening disease they didn't know. 14%. But usually it's caught early, so you can do something about it immediately. And we have maybe 60% that can do something about their energy because maybe they got metals in their body. Like, I had real challenges of buildup of mercury in my system. Totally healthy as it can be, running like crazy, and all of a sudden my energy's dropping. I'm having a hard time with my memory. I get on stage, I have no notes. I go for 5 days in a row, and it's like, why am I telling this story? It was freaking me out. I'm too young. This couldn't be happening. But that's what mercury does. And it was eating fish. I was so solid. I just had salad and fish every day. But the fish I took, what I do was swordfish and tuna. They're big fish. They eat the smaller fish. They absorb all of that mercury. And I don't methylate well. So I was on a 0 to 5 scale they measure you, and 5's dangerous. I was 123, the highest they'd ever measured. So they came here, actually, the health department came here and interviewed everybody. They thought maybe my wife was trying to kill me because I have a large life insurance policy, but she was not. It was the fish. So I had to get off the fish and I had to detox all that in my system. But people think they're old when often it's a buildup of metals.
How did you go about detoxing something?
There's a detox system that we've designed that what they took me through and made it happen. I didn't have to go through the purging that a lot of people do. It's pretty rough. And I did slowly and gently, and now I'm in great shape. But also the hormones. Most women are familiar with hormone replacement therapy, but most men and women don't realize that optimization of your hormones is much more. Why wait till you have to replace them? So if a man goes in and let's say I had a friend that went in and he gained 30 pounds. He was kind of feeling listless and trying everything. And he saw the stuff about testosterone. He's taking these BS supplements that don't work at all. And I said, why don't you come in? And they measured him. And so his doctor said, no, your testosterone's fine. He was 180. Well, fine. Most men don't feel like a human unless they're in the 600, 650 range. And some people, everyone's different, needs 800, 900. So with some just optimization of that, boom, the weight comes off. He's got drive again. He feels young again. It's a whole different piece. So those are really fundamental things. Then there's stem cells where there's gene therapy. I mean, in here I described the gene therapy where they now have they're doing this first test with humans, but where they're able to get human beings to see again. CRISPR, think about this. We're living in the greatest time in history to be alive. 25 years ago, they worked on mapping the human genome. It took them 13 years and it cost $2.7 billion. Tomorrow, you can go get your human genome done for $600 and it's overnight. I mean, it's just,
Unbelievable.
and so the work with genes right now is incredible. So it goes on and on. I'm happy to tell you more, but it's just extraordinary. I have to give you one more because this is one of my favorites.
Please.
Because I just had a cool conversation with this doctor. I went to the Rockefeller Institute about 2.5 years ago and worked with a man there named Dr. Razai. He's a neurosurgeon. He's the head of that facility, 220,000 patients, just a brilliant, brilliant man. And he's always in breakthroughs. And I heard about this company called Insight Tech. They do incisionless brain surgery. Okay, what does that look like? Well, I went down to meet him. So they have this patient. He's 69 years old, or 72 years old, excuse me. And he hasn't been able to work for 15 years. He was a mechanic. His hand shakes like this. The tremor is that extreme, right? He can't hold a glass of water, can't do, I mean, literally, it doesn't stop moving like this. As long as it's like when he goes to sleep, it's still moving, right? So, and just, you can imagine the pain in his body and everything else from it. So they go in and they put him in this MRI. Again, no surgery, no cutting. They measure what's going on in his brain. It takes about 30 minutes. Looks like you're at NASA with all these guys with computers. They see what's going on. They test, test, test. It takes about 30 minutes to find the spot. Then they treat the spot for 15 seconds. They do a temporary, make sure it worked. Then they do a 30-second full treatment, and it's done. He comes out. I walked in the room. I hand him a glass of water. He looks like this, grabs the water, takes it back, sips it. His wife's crying. His daughter's crying outside of him. I go to take the water. He goes, I'm going to hang on to this a while. It's just like total transformation. I'll give you another one. The same doctor was like 2.5 years ago. I said, tell me about addiction. Because we all know with COVID, all hell broke loose, right? You've got 800,000 people, overdosing and that died. There's 800,000 that have gone to the hospital. Suicides have gone crazy, right? So I said, what do you got going in that area? And he goes, Tony, we've created a breakthrough. He goes, I'll introduce you to one of my patients. So he arranged for the patient to come later that afternoon. And this guy was a high school football hero, injures his shoulder badly. They give him opioids. The next thing, boom, he's down. He's supposed to be an all-star. He's going to university. All that's gone. He's in opium, in heroin dens. And that goes on for the next 20 years. And his description of his addiction is, Tony, it's like you're starving to death and you'll do anything to get it. You'll go through somebody, you'll destroy somebody, you don't care. He goes, and that's been my whole life. They went in and did brain surgery. They put in this little device that monitors the brain with a little battery like they do for the heart. And they can tell, they monitored him and 4 other people, the FDA let them do this, and because they're so extreme, and they could tell 12 hours in advance before they'd have that craving. 12 hours, they could see the chain. So now they know the pattern so well. So guy hasn't touched anything in 2 years and he's talking about saved his life. And afterwards I said, this is great, but it's not scalable. It's like, what do you do? Not everyone's going to do brain surgery, plus the expense will be incredible. He goes, I know, Tony, but you know what we're doing? We're taking Insight Tech. And now that we know the patterns, we think we can do an incisionless approach to this. I interviewed this other man that he worked with. He's done it with 8 people. One treatment. Now, this kid has been addicted since he's 7 years old. Heroin, meth, I'm just nothing. I mean, his description of his addiction was just heartbreaking. Nothing ever stopped it. One treatment, no incisions, ultrasound in the right spot. It's been 9 months and he hasn't touched anything. He's even gone in those environments where you would be triggered, no response. He goes, Tony, it's like that part of my brain, there used to be a highway there and now there's not even a road. It's that changed. So there's just so much out there that can change somebody's life that people are suffering from. Like, for example, the Insight Tech, it's in 100 hospitals around the world, university hospitals, and insurance will cover it in the United States. So if you know somebody with Parkinson's or somebody with tremors and they're suffering something, there's an answer. Right? So, but people just don't know.
It's unbelievable. There was a question that I actually asked you when you told me that story when we were on a call.
Yes.
And I want to ask it on camera because I know some people are going to be thinking, well, what about radiation effects when it comes to starting to put things like that in the brain? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, well, there's nothing being put in the brain. It's ultrasound, so it's heat. And what it does is it heats that one spot and stops. It's like fusing that stop so it no longer goes through that circuit. And now it puts a new circuit. It goes around the circuit and everything works perfectly.
Do you see any negative consequences in terms of radiation moving into that realm of basically the future of medicine?
Yeah. Well, most of the work is being to figure out how to limit any form of radiation. And some of the newest technology, for example, that they use to do these, measurements, it's less than one flight that you're doing on a plane. And most people have done that. So most people are more than willing to do that for the benefit. That was my concern in the very beginning as well. But the technology has just gotten better and better. And, the other part is expense. The expenses are coming down because like Fountain Life has an insurance company now where you can insure your employees and they get all these tests in advance, which normally cost thousands of dollars. Well, why would they do that? Because then they catch something at stage 1 or not at all versus stage 3 and 4. And that's where that's where they die. And that's where all the money gets spent. So it's really, it's something now that's becoming available all over the world. We're working in the Middle East right now to open a whole set of centers there as well. But it's just bringing people the best answers, like being a fiduciary.
Yeah.
Your job is, what does this person need and what are the best resources available, as opposed to, I'm a doctor that's really busy working my tail off. I don't have time to go study. There are 7 million new studies coming out a week about different breakthroughs in health. So we have an AI, for example, that goes through and under every subject pulls those. So if we do your genome and we see something that's going on, or we know where you have a tendency, and there's some breakthrough that's happened in that area, we know we can refer that to you immediately. So AI is changing the game because you can never read all those articles. You can never pull out all that detail. But with machine learning, you can.
How long did it take you to build something like that? Because that
We
sounds
didn't build it.
comprehensive.
We have a partnership with a group that's been doing it for like 4 years. But
Wow.
AI has sped that up in the last year, as you might imagine. It's gone massive.
A good use of AI. A lot of people always
Yes,
speak
I
about
know.
the negative. I'm
Well,
like, there's good uses and there are bad uses.
well,
Depends
the health of it's great.
who's
I think
operating.
whatever you use AI, you just got to always make sure that it's accurate because it makes stuff up. You got to be so careful. It even make up studies that don't exist. So you got to do your
I
homework.
guess it's all based on the input also that you're giving them.
That's absolutely right. The quality of the question, but it's also how it got programmed. So it depends on which AI. That's why there's, Elon's coming up with his own AIs. I'm sure you know that it's going to be focused so it's not right or left. It's more independent in its thinking as well.
We're seeing a lot of that bias one side or
Yes.
another with the inputs.
Yes.
So everything you just mentioned sounds a lot like the future, although it's happening right now.
That's right.
My question for you is, in terms of moving forward in the future, I don't even know what you're going to say next because all of that was already mind blowing. But in terms of what the future of medicine looks like beyond what you already know exists with your research over the past 3 years, if you had to paint a picture in, a minute or two of
Yeah.
what the future of medicine looks like, what picture would that look like?
I would say it's you can scan something in minutes. They're working on it right now. I'm involved with the X Prizes, so I've funded several X Prizes, including one for feeding people. And so you get all these teams to compete on answers. And so there's one that's it's like a biorecorder. It's like if you remember watching Star Trek, where they can scan your body and see what's going on in a miniaturized version. There's a group right now doing MRIs. You know how big an MRI machine is. One that you can put in your home that'll cost about $2,000, $2,500. They've already done that with ultrasound, right? The little portable ones now cost $3,000, $2,000, and you can see everything's going on in the body. So a lot of this is going to move into your home. It's going to be on your wrist. It's going to monitor what's going. Not the stuff we have now. What we have now is basic, but it's at the base of a geometric progression of where we're going to be. And then there's gene therapies, right? There's the ability to literally eradicate a disease from your entire life, from the downline of all your ancestors going after you as well, not just you. It affects your life and everybody else. I mean, 3D organs are being printed as we speak. There are people with gallbladders that didn't have a gallbladder, grown with their own stem cells on a scaffolding, so there's no rejection of the organ put inside the body. But now they're working on hearts. They're doing children's hearts first. I mean, we're getting to a world where literally, you got an organ breakdown. Think about it. You got an airplane, you got a car. What happens? Well, the car starts to break down. If you love the car, you can have a car that's 50 years old. It's a classic. It runs like great. Why? You replace a part of the engine. You fix the tires. You change the wheels. Well, pretty soon that's us. So there's breakthroughs that are beyond imagination, things that you'd say are crazy, but they're not crazy. They're happening right now.
I love that. I love that. It's the fact that we're bringing people back to their power. That's what you did with this book. It's showing people you don't have to be hopeless and helpless anymore. And that's personally because of the way that I grew up. It's everything that I want to do is show people you don't have to just sit there and say, poor little old me. There's
That's right.
nothing I can do
That's right.
because that's what we've been told for so long.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this book, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're
Oh, thank
doing.
you for sharing it.
Thank you for bringing it to the world. And I recommend everybody go and check it out. Life Force, Google it, get it on Amazon, wherever you want to check it out. Read it, keep it on your desk, and read it a few times, like Tony said, as an encyclopedia, because that's really what it is. Now, speaking about breakthrough technologies,
Yes.
on that topic, again, the main reason why we're sitting here today is because of one specific technology that came into my awareness about a
Yes.
year ago.
Yes.
It was a crazy experience of how the whole thing started. It started with my aunt. She had a cystic fibroid in her uterus. And in a few hours, she was basically, brought back to herself. And it was so extreme with this technology, the energy enhancement system, that I looked and I said, there's no way.
I was going to say, one of the reasons I respected you is you were as much skepticism as I had about this when you were telling me about it.
Yeah.
But what got me wasn't your dog or somebody's dog?
So that's what got me.
Yes.
The whole thing started with my aunt. She has that 12.5 centimeter cystic fibroid, 4 hours in a 24 unit energy enhancement system. she's back to herself. And I'm looking
Yes.
at it like, what's going on? But maybe it's the power of thought, placebo. Doesn't negate it, but it's still a human being. I want to know that there's something objective over here, that there's something beyond our subjective experience that can make that happen.
Yes.
Conveniently, and it was just a perfect series of events. A few days later, my sister's dog, it was a 4 centimeter tumor in his neck, and he's like 7 pounds. That's
Yeah.
big for a dog like
Yeah.
that. We put him in the same technology, the Energy Enhancement System, 3 days. He sleeps there for 3 nights, about 10 to 12 hours a night. It's gone. At that point, I put my hands up. I said, listen, I could say placebo on a human. I can't say placebo on a dog. So at that point, it started piquing my interest, and
Yeah.
I started going down this rabbit hole of what is this? How does it work? I
Yeah.
was still skeptical, but I said, maybe there's just something I don't understand.
Yeah.
I need to understand what's really going on here.
Yeah.
So I interviewed the inventor, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael.
Yes.
We created Unified Healing, which is pretty much a network to bring more awareness to these centers around the world. Over the past 12 months, we've opened about 300 of them around the
That's
world,
amazing.
and it's been helping tons of people. One of them I know is your friend Dan, which we could speak about. But my question for you is, how did this come into your awareness?
Once again, I'm always looking for answers, right? Because I'm looking to increase my energy, my strength. I mean, I'll give you an idea. I had a group follow me for 3 years. They measured me on stage, everything. I wore a $68,000 device that measures heart rate variability, everything you can imagine. They took my blood, they took my saliva, they checked my hormones. And then they did it to my audiences. And they found some interesting things. Like I jump 1,000 times a day on stage and I weigh 285 pounds. So every time I come down,
Spoke about that right
yeah,
here.
I'll come down, it's 4 times the body weight. So he said, Tony, that's 1,000 jumps times 1,000 pounds. That's 1,000,000 pounds of pressure in a single day, and you're doing 4 days in a row. When they did my bone mass, they couldn't believe it. They said, this is humans. These are extraordinary athletes. This is something we never measured before. I'm 99.999% more than they've ever measured in a human. If you've ever been running with a friend and you get where you can't talk, that's because the lactic acid hits a 4. I'm at an 18 and still speaking, give you an idea. I have the same lean muscle mass as a defensive lineman in the NFL, right? I am burning 11,300 calories in a single day. I didn't think that was possible, but they followed me
How
for
much do
three
you eat?
years. Not enough during those days. I drop and then I got to go eat afterwards because I'm not eating. I'm just going 12 hours a day on the stage there. But to give you an idea, like I thought that was impossible, but chess players can burn 4,000 calories not moving. I burn 3,500 before I get on stage, to give you perspective.
Wow.
So in order to support all that, I do hyperbaric oxygen, I do cryotherapy, upstairs, I have all these devices here in my home. So I was in Australia and I knew I needed to get some hyperbaric oxygen. I needed to feed my nervous system that oxygen. I've been pushing so hard. And so I called this facility, said, great, I come over. And then they said, well, we're sorry, we're running a little late. Do you mind waiting in the meditation room? Sure. So I sit in the meditation room. It's kind of weird. I see these 4 computers with this code going across it. It's like, that's interesting. And so I'm sitting there, I'm reading everything else, and I felt myself just starting to like, I was in there for only like 20 minutes, and I started feeling myself like just dropping down, like really like relaxed, but like more relaxed than I was ready for. And so I came out. I said, what are those devices? Oh, they said, it's this EE system. I said, what is it? They said, well, they tried to explain it to me. They weren't really good at explaining it. Or I wasn't good at understanding it. Maybe it was my fault. But, I knew something about different types of waves electronically and what it does to the cells in the body. I've obviously studied some of that. So interesting. But I'm skeptical still. I thought, well, maybe I was just really tired, but felt profound. So I called my wife, Sage, and my trainer, Billy, and another member of my family, Mary. And I said, come over here and get a massage or something. But I want you to sit in this thing and just tell me what you experience. And everybody had this experience. So I got back, I called, and I said, explain to me how this works. They did. And I said, what's the biggest units you've got? Because I got to charge this body up, right? Because they're talking about charges, the electrical charges in the cells, recharges the body. And so I said, well, I have this room, this salt room I built. And so we do our massages and meditations and so forth. And I said, what's the most you've ever done? And at that point, it was 16. And so they put these 16, they built it in, it looked beautiful. And people come in and go, what the hell is this? And after a little period of time, you feel it. And then I'm talking to my buddy Dan, who's obsessed like I am. He's always looking for breakthroughs. He's a bodybuilder and a race car driver, and he has the Beverly Hills, center, rejuvenation center that he brings and takes all these celebrity and turns them around. And we both use exosomes, and we're just like we pitch and catch with each other. Fantastic, brilliant guy. And so he calls up, and he's an enthusiastic guy anyway, but he is so passionate. He goes, Tony, I've had this experience. And he goes, mom. And he starts describing this. I said, I think I have that. I said, I have a room with that.
I said, do you realize what you've got? I go, let me tell you what this technology just did for my life. And so I told Sage my story, and she said, that's amazing. She goes, I didn't know.
I said, tell me about your experience. So he told me about a friend of his who had Parkinson's and how they went in for this session and felt better. And after 3 or 4 days, there was no tremor. Like, what? And he goes, and this other person, and he started telling stories. And some of it, but I know he's as skeptical as I am.
I was very skeptical. I'm sitting in this room with these computer screens, and I'm going, this just looks crazy. It really did not strike me as something that would really fix my problem. I can guarantee you that.
Because I know, Tony, it sounds absurd. He goes, but he's had this challenges, I'm sure he'll explain it to you, interview him, on his shoulders that are just brutal because he's just overlifted weights for years. And he's a race car driver. I mean, everything's pedal to the metal. It's a perfect metaphor for my friend.
About 13 years ago or so, I went into an orthopedic doc. I had such chronic shoulder pain, both shoulders just so bad that I couldn't sleep, and it got so bad. I thought I had severe tendonitis. So I go in, this guy takes an x-ray of my shoulders, and he said, sir, he goes, I've never even seen this level of damage. He goes, half your humerus bones are gone. He goes, I didn't even know you could damage shoulders this bad. And he goes, you're done. And I go, what do you mean I'm done? And he said, you're done with everything. Your racing is done. Your weight training is done. That's it. It's all got to stop.
And he goes, Tony, I went in there for 3 hours and I felt nothing. After all this buildup, he said, I felt nothing.
And I just didn't really feel a big difference the first time. I'd love to say it was just amazing right off the bat, but it wasn't.
So I thought, well, I've done too much damage, it's going to take something different than that. And he goes, then a few days later, I thought, what the hell? Some of the other people talked about going there and sleeping there.
I didn't have any solutions. I thought, well, I'm going to just try it again. What do I got to lose? I'm suffering so damn bad. So I came back the next day, 6 hours, and I walked out of that place pain-free. It was so amazing. I couldn't even believe it. I went home that night and slept through the night. I don't know what the hell's going on in that place, but I said, I haven't felt like this in 12, 13 years. My energy was phenomenal. And see, I had sleep deprivation too. So I felt so good. So I was going about once a week for 6 hours at a time, and it would knock me completely pain-free. And then eventually, after a few months, I got to the point where I was going 3 days without pain, and then eventually 4 days without pain. By month 8, I'm going a full week without pain now. Like, I'm going from 1 week to the next. I don't have shoulder pain anymore. It's knocked it completely out. I don't care what anyone says. All I can tell you is this: it's changed my life so much. It literally saved me. I don't know what else I would have ever done had I not found this, because I was essentially running into a position where I wasn't going to have much time left and to do those kind of things. I was just going to become somebody that used to be. Well, I looked at Dr. Michaels and I said, do you understand what you've done for me? You literally gave me my life back. And I said, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to put so much energy into sharing this with others, people who are suffering, people who want their health back. Anybody that I talk to, if they're struggling with any kind of pain or suffering or just want to feel great again, and I just think this is the most amazing technology. I couldn't recommend it more to anyone.
So he goes, Tony, you understand, I've been having a hard time sleeping 1 or 2 hours in a row. And he goes, I can't believe you have this. You have this in your home. He said, I said, well, tell me about it. He goes, no, now they stack it. They do 24. They do this. I said, no, I think I have 16. He goes, no, but it's not. And then I talked to Dr. Michael, and she was saying, no, it's not arithmetic. It's geometric. And also the screens are bigger than the ones I have. And so I'm having 24 of them put in where I work, like, 12, 12, 12 in the corners, or 6, 6, 6 in the corners. And I'm going to do it also in our master suite. We've ordered them. They're going to be here because I went to Boca, and a lady in Boca, what's her name?
Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful lady. You don't have these centers. She opened the center in Boca. It's near here, and she was really wonderful.
It's called the Energy Room. It's in Boca.
Yes.
She works with us on the network as well for Unified Healing. She's awesome.
She's a beautiful lady. She's only in it to win it for people. And she was a fan of my work and everything else. So she let me come when no one was there. So, I could just have privacy. And then I spent the night. I slept in this thing, and I had the same, not as bad as my buddy, but I've had some shoulder pieces, some smashing, some things I've been doing in my workouts and trainings. And it's like, I didn't feel any pain. So it's like, I called him and goes, okay, let's get 24 of these things because I got everything else but this device. This really, really seems to have
So
a
you're
great
saying
impact.
after one night when you slept in her
Yes,
24 unit
yes,
system, that pain went away?
yes. And I went back a second time just to see what else I'd feel. I just felt so good. I was like, okay, oh, what's the downside of this? There's only upside as far as I can see from this component. And then I called Dr. Michael and I got her to describe more of it. But I'd like to ask you, will you explain the science to everybody? Explain it to me as well. I'd love to hear, why does this work? Because there's two different types of waves we're dealing with here, right? So can you walk me through that?
Absolutely. So I'm glad we're all on the same page of skepticism because I think that's important. There's some
Me too.
people that
I didn't
go
put
in,
anything here that didn't have all the science behind it,
it's
right?
extremely important because when you try to poke holes in things and then you find out, wait, I can't, well, then you actually know how something's working.
Yeah.
So there's a long version and there's a short version of explaining this. So I'll make the 3-minute version to the best of my ability
Okay.
of explaining how this technology works. Basically, there's two different types of fields. There's a scalar field and there's a biophotonic field. As you know, photons are just another word for light. Simplistically speaking, you could see the energy enhancement system as like a cellular charger. The optimal state of our cells and its charge is 70 to 90 millivolts.
Yep.
When you go to 20 and below, you have cancer, heart disease,
Body
things like
starts
that.
break down. That's right.
It's all about charging those cells. So really health exists within the body. It's not outside. If you can charge those cells, you'll render an environment to be able to experience health as opposed to disease. You also happen to sync to the environment that you're in. It's almost like menstrual cycles with women. We know it's not contagious, but they sync to a bioresonant field around them, and they all start experiencing the same expression at the same time, which is, in that case, the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
So when
Same thing happens with clocks. If you go to a clock, then you'll see the clocks. They all line up all of a sudden.
It
Same
syncs
exact
for the most
They're
part.
all different, and then they'll line up. Right?
Exactly. So with that cellular charge, if you're in an environment of a 20 millivolt charge, it's going to be much harder for your cells to get to that 70 to 90 range. If you're in an environment of 70 to 90 millivolts, well, then it becomes a cellular charger for your cell. It's like plugging your body into that, outlet to be able to charge the cells.
Yeah.
So that's a simple way of answering it.
Yeah.
But a little more expansive version of it is you have a scalar field that is generating and a biophotonic field that is generating.
A scalar wave will go through walls. It'll go for miles.
Scalar wave goes through Earth. It creates that torsion field that has no limit of time and space because it's beyond that. It's actually faster than the speed of light, 1.4 times the speed of light, which is what scalar basically is.
Yeah.
So with your scalar field, the science behind it is you take two identical electromagnetic fields and align them in perfect proximity with each other. That merge point will create a scalar field, which is a torsion field. That torsion field, the toroidal field, which is the natural form, energetic field of everything when it comes to creation as we know it, is what our body is always trying to come back to. Your heart, your body, all the way to planet Earth. Yeah. When you tune back into that torsion field, your body experiences balance over disease, health over disease. Yeah. So it's really not the technology that's healing you. That's not how it works. It's your body healing itself, and the technology provides the proper environment to do it.
Because also you have all these electromagnetic waves that we have today. They're on our wrists, they're in our pockets, they're everywhere else. And from what I understand, it also helps to create that balance, to bring you back to that balance as well.
What it does is, a lot of people say it blocks it. It doesn't block it.
No.
It transmutes it. It takes distorted fields and turns it into coherent fields. And when you're standing in a coherent field of energy, aka that scalar field, the torsion field, you're able to experience coherence. That's one side. The other side is your biophotonic light. So through color therapy, polychromatic light, which is all those different colors that you see on those screens. Through photons, light hitting themselves in the center of that room. That's why they're perfectly aligned like you have in your room right now.
Yes.
And you will have with the 24 unit systems. You have an implosion of these photons, and that implosion creates a charge, 70 to 90 millivolts, rendering an environment that your body will sync to at 70 to 90 millivolts, thus charging the cells of your body. Yep. So it sounds crazy when you go the quantum physics level of it and explain it on that level, but you could break it down. And in short, it's creating a balanced environment that your body is tuning into and bringing itself back into balance, because that's what your body's always trying to do. Give it the proper environment, it will do just that.
It's interesting because there's a doctor that I have in Dallas that I've sent, I think 6 people to that were all terminal, from a young boy that had testicular cancer and was given 3 months to live. 3 years ago, he's totally healthy today, to somebody with glioblastoma, which I know is pretty brutal, brain cancer. And everything he does is to measure those fields in the body. and to restore them to that balance. He talks about 60, 70, 50 to 70. And I actually have a device that you can measure with so you can see it. So I'm real excited to see where I am and then go into the field for that period of time and see what the pieces are. It'll be an interesting way to measure it. I also think it'll be great for hormonally to see what happens for my family as well, because the hormones affect so much of your life and they're affected by so many different elements. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But, the quality of your life is the quality of life of yourself. And there are these many, forces of energy. And that's why I try to tell people life force to me, that's what it's all about. Life force is the force of energy. It's the energy of your life. But the quality of the life of your cells is the quality of life of your organs, the quality of life of your body is the quality of your life. So anything that can enhance that, that's why I'm personally so immersed in this and so excited about this.
It's going to be unbelievable. I look forward to hearing your direct experiences now, with that 24 unit, having it aligned without the plexiglass and really doing the proper tests. Like you're saying, you can even do live blood analysis, see what happens, see what happens before and after.
Yes.
Somebody
Well,
like
my
you
wife
have the
does that
tools
for
to
a
do
living.
it.
It's not for a living anymore. That's how I met her.
Yeah.
So she was doing my live blood analysis, how I got to meet her. So we'll do that. We'll do the microscopic view. That's a great way to take a look at what the impact is in seconds.
100%.
We'll see it immediately. And then I'm gonna help Dan because he lives in Vegas and he wants to put together a center there with 48 in it. I'm like, okay, buddy, I'm all in. You go in it, and when I go to Vegas, I'll come there too. But I really want to get out of this technology as well. I want to experience more of myself. I think it'd be great for you guys to publish, I know, someplace where more of the science is, because that's what I try to do so people know. But also, regardless of the science of anything, the best test of anything is what does it do to you, right? We're all somewhat unique, but the fundamentals are still the same. It's all bioelectrical energy that makes us alive. And if we can enhance that, why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Right now, there's about 2,000 pages of research.
Wow.
I'm working on making that even better so
That's great.
people can actually see more direct forms of how does this work. And like you said, beyond just what you read on that piece of paper, what's your experience?
Yes.
For me, what really got me was seeing it happen across the board, thousands. And when I say thousands, I mean I get emails all the time with people from all around the world saying the same exact thing. When it comes to strokes, when it comes to children that have speech impediments, when it comes to depression, anxiety, people that don't know each other are telling me the same story over and over and over again. Now, that's not quite a controlled study, but to me, that's evidence right in front of your face, because you don't have that if it's not happening across the board.
My whole view was, even if it was a placebo, if it worked, why would you use it, right? Because placebos are powerful. The more powerful the entry, the more impact. But this seems to go beyond placebo from what I'm seeing so far.
With the dog,
yes,
it's been happening with animals all around.
That's a good point.
So I have a question for you, Tony.
Sure.
After you're getting these 24 unit systems, two of them, after you have a few months of experiencing them, doing your tests, if it's what you think it is and you have those results, would you be open to doing another interview to share those results?
I'll be happy to, of course.
Awesome.
Of course.
Awesome.
Great.
I really look forward to it. And again, I want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing across the board.
I appreciate it.
I told you when we first spoke, you've inspired me. And one thing I want to say that I didn't say to you yet, you're one of the few people in the world that's not just a businessman and not just a conscious person. Most people in the conscious realm and the spiritual realm have no business sense. And most people in the business world have no spiritual sense. And it's rare to me when I get to see somebody that can combine the two. My father showed me that growing up. And it's a pleasure to be able to work with somebody like you and be in your presence in that way.
I'll tell you what I believe. I really believe business is a spiritual game, because I have 111 companies. We do over $7 billion in business across multiple different kinds of industries. I no business background, but I have one complete obsession: do more for others than anybody else does in your category. If you do more for other people than anybody else in your category, you build a brand. When you build a brand, people will seek you out. When they seek you out, the business will grow. And so the more what does every religion in the world teach, regardless of which religion you believe in? I'm personally Christian, but it doesn't matter. It's like, treat thy neighbor, love thy neighbor like thyself. If you can put other people first and give your all in business, you always prosper. You have to still know how to learn tools to run a business. I get that, and I teach people that too. But I think it's, to me, it's like, we are so lucky to live in a country where there's free enterprise, because that's how these breakthroughs happen. Because somebody's an entrepreneur, somebody like Chelsea, who's this woman who's just on fire to help people. She puts herself on the line, she makes an investment, she builds a little center, and she's there. She's there to over deliver for every human being that's there. And it's healing just to meet somebody like that, much less to be in that kind of environment. And I think business is, to me, one of those realms. It's just another way to measure the quality of your contribution. So thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it very much. But I want to plant seeds with everybody that if you're an entrepreneur out there, I'm a brother or sister with you, because I know you took risks But you got to take care of your energy in your life, because if you don't take care of this, there's nothing left to give to other people.
That's the basis of it all. So again, I want to say thank you to you, Tony, and I want to remind everybody that's watching this, you are not helpless to any situation in your life. And that's not just health. That's everything that you're doing in your life. You're a creator of it. You're not a victim to anything. And every single answer exists. Maybe we don't know all of them, but you can find it. If there's a disease, there's a solution. If there's a disease, there's a cure. And if there's a problem, that solution exists. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to find it? This is a beautiful step in the right direction. It brings us in the health and wellness field to find those things. But I want to remind each and every one of you, when you take the next step in your life, whatever it may be, there will be risks involved, especially in the world that we live in today. Take those risks, do what you need to do, step outside of the box, because the box right now is limited. To step into this new paradigm, we're going to have to start thinking differently. We're going to have to start taking different actions, and we're going to have to start listening to our hearts instead of listening to a few people that tell us you have to do X, Y, or Z. Listen to everybody, but filter through your own discernment to understand what is really the best thing to do based on what I believe, based on what I know, and based on what I've learned from everything outside of me and within me as well. I want to just give a shout out to EESystem, the Energy Enhancement System, for really keeping up with this incredible demand. There's a year waiting list right now just to get these things. So I want to say thank you to the entire EESystem team for making all of this happen and really working endlessly. I want to say thank you to the entire Unified Healing team that has been expanding very, very quickly over the past 12 months and making all of this happen. And most importantly, I want to say thank you to all these center owners that have stood up, heard the call to action, and said, we're in, no matter what country you're in, we're in, let's make this happen, and let's bring this to the world to the best of our ability. And make sure to get Life Force by Tony Robbins basically everywhere, Amazon, his website, and so on and so forth. Tony, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for supporting this initiative.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.